sound of that tractor means it's time for us to go to work. Welcome to the Give Us the Dirt podcast powered by Barfield Grading Company. My name is Brandon Lindsay, and I'm your host. Episodes like the one we're about to record today are always some of my favorites. Today, we have a real deal dirt world lifer in the studio with us. A true veteran of construction for almost 40 years, this well-respected ambassador of our industry has experienced everything that the dirt world has to offer, the good and the bad. Alan Barfield is the president and owner of Barfield Grading Company, founded in Fort Mill, South Carolina in 1988. He fell in love with the dirt world and with heavy equipment, riding along with his grandfather for many years as he worked in York County, South Carolina. Recognized as Business Person of the Year in 1998, Alan and the Barfield name have become synonymous with grading and moving dirt. Today, we get to dig into his story a little bit and hopefully get the dirt on what his secret to success has been. Alan, welcome to the Give Us the Dirt podcast.
Thanks for letting me on here.
Hey, so I don't know why we didn't think about getting you in here sooner, but over the last several months, I kept having people come up to me and say, have you talked to Alan? Have you talked to Alan Barfield? You need to get Alan on here. And I've known you for many years. We've had a great relationship. A lot of the people that I work around have known you, but I was surprised how many have not heard your story.
Right.
Does that surprise you?
Well, if it goes back to construction, it's really a small world, that I see people around here that I've known for 20, 30 years, and just like yourself, back to the Martin Marietta days, that just the people in this industry is mostly real good people to deal with and be around, good character, down-to-earth people, friendly, caring about other people. You just can't hardly find that in a lot of places.
It is. It's cool. And you've got so many relationships and so many people that think the world of you, but yet they don't know how you got started. They don't know how you got to where you are. So we're going to dig that out today, and I'm excited to help tell that story a little bit. First off, we got to get everyone introduced to you. And so tell me, your son's in the business, right? AJ's working with you.
He is.
How would AJ introduce you to someone that doesn't know Alan Barfield?
Well, he would probably say, he calls me Dad, and most of the time, sometimes the boss. But typically it's Dad around business.
Dad at business and home. So you Dad all the time.
I'm Dad all the time. Yeah.
Does he treat you the same at the office as he does at the dinner table?
He just got married a couple of years ago. He got married in 21, and he's got a new wife. And so typically after work we may talk a little bit, but at work we talk several times a day.
Yeah.
Because we run two businesses also. We run a landfill and a couple of dirt pits, and he's kind of involved with that side of the operation.
Well, I know that's got to make you proud, having him in there and being able to build this thing with him.
Yeah, he went to York Tech and took construction management like I did also. So we kind of in that same category we grew up, kind of the schooling. That's
great. Alan, so take me back to the beginning. I want you to go back. What's your earliest memory of construction, and talk to me about how you got involved in construction.
Wow. We could probably talk this time tomorrow, but I'm going to try to keep it down to the point. When I was growing up, my grandfather ran the road scraper for York County. His name was Alfred Griffin, and he scraped all the rural roads around Fort Mill Township, and my mother and my grandmother said every time he'd crank the machine up, I would cry if I wouldn't own it. And so they put me on it when I was 5, 6 years old. And literally, he would pick me up from school on it. He would line up in traffic on the motor grader and pick me up, and I would stay with him all afternoon.
He was picking you up from school with the motor grader?
On the machine, yeah. I got a picture of it if you want to see it.
That's awesome. You had to be the most popular kid in school. Or was that pretty normal to have heavy equipment picking you up in the...
No, it wasn't too normal back then, but, I graduated high school in 82, and this was probably 75, 76, right through there, 74.
Alan, that's awesome. Can you imagine a parent picking you up in the car line right now and pulling up in a motor grader?
And he had a rope that he would tie me on. There wasn't a seatbelt on machines back then. And he had a rope that he would tie me in on there to make sure I stayed in place.
So he was being safe.
Being safe back then, yep.
That is great.
And so I reckon my love from construction started way back then, and just kind of all through high school, I worked on a local farm in Fort Mill, and love of tractors and disking and plowing. And even in high school, I was on the soil evaluation team, and we won the state championship 4 years in a row and went on to the national championship on soil evaluation. So I go back for learning soil. I can take a soils report now and tell you exactly clay and sand and all that kind of stuff that I learned, 35 years ago. And they just don't teach that stuff in school no more. And I learned a lot back then. Surveying, topos and stuff like that helped me to this day, read plans and all.
That's a great point. So you were learning that in high school?
They taught that in high school. They taught it in agriculture.
Never heard of it. Soil evaluation.
Soil evaluation, yep. They had soil evaluation team. They had a parliamentary procedure team that has public speaking. So I'm going to try to use some of that today if I need to.
I can tell. It's already paying off. I can tell. That's great.
But I learned a lot back then that still stays with me to this day, that, as far as contours, foot contours, 2 foot contours, that, I learned to adapt to that. So,
Alan, was there ever any doubt that you were going to do this for a living? Did you ever think about doing anything else?
I always worked during high school. I always had worked that. My mom made me work. I worked on the farm. And when I was in high school, I got a job in York County, and I started running a bush cutter. And I had a CDL driver's license then, or Class 3. I was on the fire department. I was a fireman for many years, a volunteer fireman. And I got Class 3 driver's license when I was 16, when I was in high school. And I drove the fire trucks when I was in high school, to a fire. I mean, actually to the pumpers and tankers to the fire. And I learned to drive trucks back then. That's been a long time ago.
Wow.
And after that, I went to work for the county and had a license. So they made me move equipment around. I was like 19, 20 years old. And finally they moved me up to moving dirt at the landfill. And they wanted me to stay there, though, but I didn't want to work at the county. So I moved on to working to F.T. Williams Company.
Okay.
In Charlotte.
So at this point you're 19, 20 years old?
20, and I was going to tech at night, and I was working for F.T. Williams during the day, and I got a part-time job at General Tire on the weekend, so I was working 7 days a week. And my mom told me, she said, son, you're going to have to make up your mind what you want to do. So you can't work 7 days a week. And I said, well, I'm making pretty good money doing this. She said, yeah, but you're killing yourself. I said, okay. So in the meantime, I saved up some money, and I bought me a landscape tractor, and I bought me a dump truck. So I said, well, I'm going to try to do something on my own. This was probably, I was probably 22, 23 years old between the time I was working at FT and the time I started doing some stuff on my own. And my mom says, well, you're doing pretty good on your own, but you can't still work 2 jobs. So after all this transaction down, a job come available at Duke Power Company. My mom said, you need to go to work there with all the benefits. I said, well, I like working at F.T. Williams because I get run equipment. But the way it boiled down to is that at Duke Power, I was on the crew that was going to run equipment. So I kind of had everything in one hand. But F.T. Williams wanted me to stay there. They offered me a project manager job back then. And it was real good money. And just kind of by the way, Denton Williams was working with the trucking side at that time.
That's right.
When they had all the trucks, it was Wayland Trucking back then. You may remember them.
I don't remember Wayland. I remember Denton being and that being part of his journey, but I don't remember Wayland Trucking.
Yeah, Wayland was part of F.T. Williams back in the day. And I remember Denton being there back in the 80s too. Okay. But I was on the grading side, and they wanted me to stay there. And I just didn't think there was a future, I was making good money there. I mean, I think I was making like $20-some an hour. And that was pretty good money back then. Yeah. And I was just still wasn't comfortable. So I took a cut in pay and went to work for Duke Power Company because of all the benefits and all. And I worked there for about 2 years. And the whole time I was at Duke Power Company working with them, I was working on the side. I had a dump truck, and I would haul stone from Martin Marietta and Rock Hill with a flatbed truck to driveways, and I'd fix driveways, and I'd haul dirt, and I made more money doing that than working at Duke Power. But it seemed like my mom and dad was always behind me, said, son, you can't keep this pace up forever. I was young, and I worked all the time. I mean, That's all I did was work.
Oh, you know, as you go through this, that's what I hear. I mean, you're talking about you're going to school.
Going to school.
You're working at FT. You're running your own truck.
Right.
You're working every day of the week.
At night, 8 or 9 o'clock at night, Saturdays, Sundays, you know, I'd go to church on Sunday.
I mean, for the past 5 years of this story, your parents have been saying you can't run like this.
Yep, right.
But yet that's the only way you run.
I kept on. The first piece of equipment I bought, I paid cash for it. You know, I didn't finance it. I think it was $6,000 some dollars. I bought a front end loader.
Wow.
And I bought a flatbed truck. And I saw some of the pictures up there. If you look on the webpage, you may see some of them. And I've got a few of them with me. And literally, my mom finally stayed behind me. She said, you can't keep this pace up. I said, okay, yes, ma'am. You know, respect your parents. So Duke Power had an early layoff. Package, I think the economy got slow, and I took the package to cut, and I started business on my own. It was in about 87 or 88, and that's when I started in business.
1988?
1988.
And at this time, you've got a dump truck.
Got a dump truck.
You got a front end loader.
And I bought a backhoe also, kept it for a short period of time. We was clearing house lots and driveways and basements and all. It was just me and 2 other guys, and it was doing well.
You had employees?
Had employees. I had 2 employees.
Okay.
Started off me and 2 employees.
So what was the plan? You leaving Duke? What was the plan? What were you going to do?
Well, I was kind of just I enjoy running equipment. I mean, that's what I love to do. I mean, that's what, you know, I'd soon be on the job right now running a dozer or a track hoe or anything. Just cuts in your blood. But at that time, I was running the equipment and staying on the jobs all the time, and which I love to do. But, you know, my mom was always the business person kind of in the family. She said, son, she says, I'll take care of the books and stuff like that and, you know, pay the help, and you just stay in the field. And this was about 88, going into early 89. It seemed like the economy fell off a little bit. It's been a long time ago, Brandon, so I'm just trying to think off my foot. But we really, when the Hurricane Hugo hit, it was a September 21st, 1989, it devastated this area through here, especially the Fort Mill area. And the town of Fort Mill called us and wanted us to start cleaning up debris in town. And we did, and at that time, I bought another front-end loader, had 2. And we worked for the town of Fort Mill for 3.5 months. And I worked 3.5 months without a day off, cleaning up trees and limbs and, you know, just not getting the details though, but it was manual chainsaw work, still had 2 trucks and all. And the town of Fort Mill really helped me get my business established, because at that time, I've never seen that kind of monies. You know, we was making $35,000, $40,000 a week. You know, I was 26 years old, and I'm used to seeing $300 or $400 a week. And I remember the first check I got from the town, my mom got it, and I never saw it. And I said, what did you do with my check? She says, I invested in the stock market. I said, okay. I said, well, I know about the stock market. She says, trust me. She said, let me invest this check for you. And she did, and it's still invested now.
No kidding. So she took that first check, and that came from disaster relief, right?
Disaster relief, right.
And she took that money and she said, I'm investing this.
She did.
You never saw a penny of it, and it's done exactly what she wanted it to do.
That investment account she started for me, it was 30-some years ago, 34 years ago. It's still in that same account. I still got the same stockbroker that she introduced me to back then. I still use him today.
That's awesome.
So, but after that, I told her, I said, Mom, I understand that, but I gotta pay the help. I got fuel to pay.
Right.
She says, you may blow some of it too. I said, well, shouldn't I have a little bit of spending money? She says, trust me on this one here.
You had the best controller you could have hired.
She was extremely tight. My mom was a human resource director at Westinghouse plant. She done all the hiring and up there. She was over all the benefits. So she took business in Winthrop. So she was actually the controller secretary for Barfield Grading when we first got started.
So is that kind of the moment that things kicked off
Yes,
for Barfield? Hugo comes through. You guys are like, you're out there and you're working hard and you're making money. That was a pivotal moment for you guys?
It was probably the turning point in our business because we started getting cash flow and income coming in, and I bought a few more dump trucks, and I bought another front end loader from Carolina Cat, and John Hood, some of the old guys up there, he's still around, and from Blanchard we dealt with them.
Do you miss the days of being able to buy a front end loader for $6,000?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told. We just ordered a new 953 about a month ago, and the first one we bought was $93,000, and I think this one was $320,000. I mean, so how things have changed.
It's changed a lot. You know, you mentioned Hugo, and that's interesting because you've been at this now for 40 years almost, and so you've seen ebbs and flows in the market. You've lived through natural disasters. You've lived through recessions. You've seen good times, bad times. You know, throughout your career, do you talk about those times where things got tough? Talk about working through some of the recessions and some of the difficult times. You know, Hugo could have been that, but it ended up being a good thing for you. What are some of the difficult moments that you've had?
Hugo was a real good time for us because it hit at the right time. We was growing our business, and just working 3 or 4 months without a day off. And we had no power in our house because it knocked power out. I mean, I had to, go just physically shave or take a shower with cold water. And I mean, that's really roughing it to me, and which I was in the Boy Scouts and all, and just know what tough times is like. But to me, just not get a hot meal sometime was just like being in the Army, but we shrugged through it, though. But you was mentioning about the recession. We went through a tough time about 2002, 2003 was a little downturn. I think you was Martin Merida days then. And but we tried to save some cash up for hard times. My mom always said, save some cash for a rainy day, son, because it ain't always going to be gravy. And that still sticks in my mind to this day. But as far as recessions, I can't remember the recessions being as bad as the one that hit in 2008 and 9. I think that may be what you highlighting. So, our company really growed from them days after Hugo. We probably grew to probably 70 employees from probably 1995 to 2006, 2007, and you was in the market construction, and it just felt like the light switch went off. And we went 2008, 2009. That's when we had backlog in 2009. Late 9 and 10 hit us really hard. We laid off about 50 employees, and it really got tough. I mean, even me and Brian had talks back then. He went through a few hard times in some of them days, and me and him had heart talks about, I looked in the mirror sometime. I said, Alan, I don't know if we're going to be able to keep the doors open because we didn't have no work coming in. We went from like 70 guys down to 20. And, employees like you and your coworkers, you care about them. You want them to get a paycheck and so they can feed their families. But it seemed like we kind of whittled through that, and it's been pretty good ever since then.
Yeah.
I mean, even to now, it's still been pretty good.
It's interesting to hear you use that analogy. I think Brian refers to it the same way. It was like somebody turned the lights off,
right,
and it was immediate. And just what do we do? But one of the things I think is really cool about your story, Alan, is that it's one thing to love equipment. It's one thing to love the dirt world and construction, but you are also very strategic about how you've built your business. And I say that because it's not just the grading. Let's back up. What does Barfield look like today? What's the size of the company?
We between 60 and 70 employees, kind of the size that I always wanted to kind of have the company that size, and we got around 100 pieces of equipment.
And that's everything. I mean, you got scrapers, D8s, trucks, off-road trucks, all the excavators.
Yeah. We own about 20 road trucks as far as dump trucks that we own and run. But we got close to 100 pieces of equipment as far as just heavy equipment that we run, that we own and operate.
But in addition to the grading side, you've also got landfill.
Mm-hmm.
You've got
dirt pits,
gravel pit, dirt pits. And that's the part that's intriguing to me. And I think, looking back over your success and your story, like that set you apart from a lot of the other people that were in business at that time. And it gave you a leg up. It gave you leverage that other people didn't have.
Well, it seemed like back in the day that, anytime you go do a job, even to this day, it's harder and harder to find somewhere to get rid of stuff. I mean, as far as getting rid of concrete and land clearing debris and even mulch. And we, years and years, tried to find a place, and we finally found the right place to get it permitted in South Carolina. And it has really done us well. I mean, because, y'all use our facility, y'all use it today, and Blue Max go in there all the time. McGirt, all the local people use it. And we've got several dirt pits that we've got permitted because the jobs going on now require fill material because most of the good land is gone, as I call it. As far as wall backfill and stuff like that, we got a couple gravel pits that we can supply that material to y'all, or to other customers also around Charlotte.
Well, you think about it now. There's not a contractor in this area that wouldn't love to have a landfill or a dirt pit or a gravel pit in their pocket there that they could access at any time. But that took vision at that time, right? So what made you think, all right, this is something, we need to make this move now? Was it just out of necessity, or were you looking 10, 15 years down the road?
In about the mid-'90s, I was involved with Cawthorpe Landfill. Me and Jimmy Matthews and Rock Hill and Mr. Cawthorpe formed that landfill up there together. All of us did. And we was all involved with it. And later on, a couple of years down the road, Mr. Cawthorpe decided he wanted to keep it within his family, so they bought our partnership out. So at that time, I was looking around and trying to get a facility of my own. So I found some property in Rock Hill and got it rezoned, and it's a fight. I had to hire attorneys and all. It went on for like 2 years before we got a permit, because landfills are necessary in our construction, that we need them, for developing land. And also, other folks need them also, like clearing lots and stuff like that. And just nobody wants them in their backyard. Mm-hmm. And they're really not that bad. It's just the truck traffic.
You got to have it.
Got to have it.
Got to have it. And you've got it.
We've got them.
And that definitely helped. And I that's fascinating to me. I admire that vision behind that. And looking at it now, I mean, it was brilliant how it was all put together. And just a testament to you. And, that's how you get Business Person of the Year. It's not just hard work. It's having a vision and a strategy and a plan to be able to execute it. And I admire what you've been able to do there. Alan, you've seen this industry change a lot. Mm-hmm. And what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen over the course of your career in regards to the construction industry as a whole?
I reckon a lot of the biggest change I've seen is the technology come, like the GPS, machine control, and even we've got drones that we fly sites and all with, just like y'all do, and run all GPS equipment. 25 or 30 years ago, it was just the stakes that you used, like y'all have out in y'all sandbox out there, which still, I cut my teeth on stuff like that. I'm not a real computerized savvy. I've had to learn over the years, because I wasn't taught that in school. But be good in business, though, is you got to surround yourself with smart people, that can pick up the task that you can't do. Like you very good at a lot of stuff you do. And if you need to surround yourself with good people. That's what we try to do in business also. But as far as changes, that and just there's just, I don't know how to describe it, but there's just so much different, the government, the rules and stuff like that, so much EPA rule stuff change. And you can see it like the DEF in trucks and all that, and especially around the rock quarries, and you see a lot of stuff like that changes. And even around our mining permits, our mines, and our landfill, 10 years ago, it was a checklist like 1 page, as far as inspection. Now it's a checklist of like 10 pages.
Right.
Do rules and, roads control, and just, I could go on and on and on. To me, that's a lot of the big change in the industry.
Yeah, I'd imagine that is. That's interesting to hear you say that, because those, that didn't exist.
No.
30, 40 years ago.
No. And, just a lot of changes I see in the industry is I've heard people on y'all's pod show talk in the past about, like bonds and CPA work and all that. I didn't know what a balance sheet was back then.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and what a bond was. What do I need this for? And I always heard a person's bond is his handshake. You know, and it's still mine today lots of times. But, you know, it's just you got a contract now with that thick. And, you know, years ago to be on 2 pieces of paper. I see that being a big change now. And just, you know, just have to fight lien waivers and try to fight for your monies and work you done. I see that being a lot of change. I mean, just not sugarcoating the plum none, just.
No, you're right. I mean, that's a huge part. The regulation that we face as an industry is exhausting.
It is.
But to see you make that change from running equipment to running a business, now all of a sudden you've got to learn these things. You got to learn how to navigate your company through the regulation, the compliance, the finance, all these things. Do you enjoy that part of it, or do you wish most days you were back out there running a piece of equipment?
It's, you know, some good days. I read that book, Traction. I read it before, and it's eye-opening to me that I think everybody in business needs to read that book. It tells you that, you know, you're going to have good days and bad days in business, but I try to balance my time that where you can start off in the morning and get sidetracked real easy, where you need to be back on track to have your day. I try to plan my days out a day ahead of time, like a job schedule, you know, so you can be on time at meetings. And, you know, if you got to meet a CPA or your insurance guy or go to the bank and, you know, just do normal business. I try to plan my day out that where that happens, because if you don't, you can get sidetracked very easy. You know, go to lunch sometime and stay there 3 hours, but you don't need to be there 3 hours.
Right.
You know, so
you talk about the biggest change being some of the technology and the regulations that we're dealing with. What about some of the biggest obstacles that you've had to overcome to get to where you are right now?
I've been through a lot of them. Big obstacles. Just kind of a lot of the stories that people have been on here before is just trying to get out of that. You know, I would rather be out in the field working though, but to run the business, you can't be out there in the field. You got to be what you're good at. And I've learned to try to adapt to, you hire a superintendent or job foremen, project managers, let them handle that. And if they got issues, they need to come to you, and y'all try to work them out together like in a job meeting. Mm-hmm. And that's hard for me to adapt because I'm probably too much in control sometimes. You know, that's what's hard to get away from is, you know, I see stuff over there and I say, that's his job, Alan, you stay out of it, okay? You need to go back to the office and, you know, look at these set of plans or get with the estimator and make sure this is right.
That's a different role.
That's a different role, and that's what's hard to let go. And I've seen that a lot on your podcast here, that a lot of business folks had a hard time getting. I mean,
I'm sure, especially business owners that built the business from scratch. I mean, that's your baby. You've been a part of every single piece of it, and to hand that over to someone, not necessarily hand it over, but to empower someone else to make those decisions, to where your role becomes teaching and leading at that point, and then you allow someone else to go out and do that. I would imagine that is pretty difficult, and we hear that often. It
is difficult, you know, but that's what you got to do to be successful. I think to have the business to keep growing, you know. I don't want to be a huge company. I mean, I'm happy where we at now, and you know, I enjoy working around y'all's folks. I mean, it's really, you know, it's I'm blessed to be working around y'all lots of times. I'm very thankful for it.
Well, we talked about, you've got your son in the business, AJ. He's doing it. You know, is that where you're at now? Are you in a position to where you're trying to get AJ ready?
I've got several folks in our company that we probably going to bring them up, hoping into some ownership, you know, and I think eventually that I would want to get out somewhat, you know, a few years down the road. Maybe still be involved with it, but maybe not every day hands-on, that everybody gets here in the morning, everybody gets home safe every day.
You just want them to let you go out there and run a dozer.
That's right.
So tell me this. Well, you know, you've heard this podcast. You've listened to a lot of it. And one of the purposes of creating this podcast was to change the narrative on our industry. And I can't think of a better way to do that than to showcase a story like yours, where hard work just paid off. And and staying true to what you wanted to do, having people around you that could guide you through that, like your mom with the business aspect of it. But, I mean, really just hard work and grit.
Hard work and grit.
That got you through it. Is there anything else that you would share with someone that's out there thinking about getting in this industry about how they can be successful? What advice would you give?
I would give advice that just exactly kind of what you said, though, is just what you put into it is what you get out of it every day in life. You know, you get out of bed. I get out of bed with a purpose of thinking I need to try to make this day a successful day.
What time you get out of bed?
Usually around 6.
6 o'clock.
You know,
I was man, I had you pegged for a 4 a.m. guy.
No, I've never been a really early bird, believe it or not.
All right.
I mean, my mom said I ought to have a night job because I function better later in the afternoons and night.
There you go.
I mean, but I've always had to get up early. But my shop and all my office is 10 minutes from my house, so between 6 and 6:15 about what time I get up. Usually at the office around 7.
I interrupted you there. I shouldn't have done that, Alan. So you get up early. You giving advice right now to that young man or young lady that's trying to get into the industry.
Get up early. Surround yourself with some good folks, even if you're small company. Get some people that you can trust, and trust and honesty. To me, honesty and trust is 90% of the business, because if you go out here and you do a job for a GC like that, and you do him a good, honest job, he's gonna call you back. Your reputation, your word. If you have change orders and you honest with them and honest with people in business, that it's usually repeat business. Probably the same way a lot of Hoopah's business for a lot of repeat business. They're gonna bring you back for a second time if you do right the first time. That'd be my biggest advice: is honesty, and try to do the right thing, and surround yourself with some good people.
3 great things right there. Would you do anything different?
Now or in the past?
Well, no, looking back over it, would you have changed anything?
Probably so. You go back and look at mistakes you make and all. It's just, we hired a full-time safety guy a couple of years ago, and I think that we should have had one back 10 or 15 years ago, which we didn't. And we have one now that really does a lot more for the company, for us, than do safety stuff. Just safety meetings every day with crews, and he oversights job. Just the same thing y'all's guys do.
Yeah.
I wish we'd done that earlier, personally. That's a good question there. So
Well, it's good that you don't have an answer, and
Yeah.
it means that you don't have a whole lot
yeah,
there that you.
I've been, like you said, I think you got to have some luck with you too. I think I've had some lucky days, in construction. Some days we might not have been the lowest bidder, but we got the job because they wanted us. They feel comfortable with us doing the job.
Al, do you believe that that's got anything to do with the relationships you've been able to build over the years?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it goes back just like me and you know you from Art and Met. I said, it's like I told my son. I said, AJ, I said, Brandon Lindsay's a fine fella, and there ain't many people that you go out in life and say usually negative about people, but I tell our guys, you need to talk good about somebody,
Yeah, in this industry, I don't know if it's like this in other industries, but I do know it's like this in construction. Those relationships that you build, they last your entire career.
Right.
And people don't leave the industry. They jump from company to company, but they never leave the industry. And those relationships, you never know when they're going to come in handy. And your reputation, that matters. And building those relationships. I got a daughter who just started college, and she's, they get stressed out about grades. And I said, honey, more so than your grades, make relationships, meet people, build your network. That's gonna be more important when you get out of school than anything.
Absolutely.
It's the people.
Yeah. Just like what you mentioned around Charlotte, though, I do a lot of work with Blue Max. They come in of our pit a good bit, and just like McGirt Trucking, and just like Carthop and all that, just like sometimes that a job, a call, some of y'all jobs may call, and some other jobs say, we need 40 trucks tomorrow. So I'm in a position that where I'm going to try to call my relationships up and say, listen, I need some help tomorrow. Can you get me some trucks?
Yeah.
But I'm really in the bind. We'll come help you. That'll help get the ox out of a ditch sometimes. you know.
Absolutely. You solve someone's problems, you got a partner for life.
That's right. You know, it's just, you know, I look at it like this here is I would rather get 50 cents of the job than 100, because that 50 cents and 50 out of another and 50 out of another one adds up to some decent monies.
Right.
That's the way I look at it in business lots of times. I don't want the whole job sometimes. I'm just happy helping somebody. You know, so.
Well, it's worked. It's worked.
Yeah.
Alan, you got any hobbies? What do you do for fun?
Probably got too many.
Somebody told me you like to restore old farm equipment.
I got some farm equipment I restored. I got a John Deere 4020. I got an International 1066. I've always liked tractors, and I've still got the first tractor I've ever owned. I bought it in 1984. I still got it in my shop.
Really?
Yep. It's a John Deere 2040. I still got it. And I got a 70 Chevelle I restored.
I see cars too.
Cars too. I got a 57 Chevrolet pickup truck, my granddad's. When he bought it new, I restored it. So I've got it also.
That's great.
Deer hunting, dirt track racing, gardening. I got a bunch of property in Chester we work on down there, farming. I got 400 acres of land in Chester we just bought in the last couple of years.
Wow.
So I'm down there. Built a pond on one of the tracts of land. So I'm eventually probably going to build a house down there.
Alan, you got a lot of work to do in retirement.
Well, that's something I enjoy doing. You know, that's, to me, going in there working is relaxing. You know, no telephone, no email, no text. You know, to me, that's what I enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alan, where do you see this industry going? What do you see, knowing that, you know, you're going to pass it off to that next generation? Where do you see us going as an industry right now?
I like y'all's idea, what y'all doing with the teaching of the kids and the college students and all, and that's concerned me a lot, because in our company we've hired some young guys, but we've got some older guys too, and that's, I reckon, highlighting on what you asked me is bring some youth into the business, you know, get them exposed and you got to enjoy what you do, and that's something I've enjoyed what I've done. You know, and if you don't enjoy the industry, I don't think you need to be in it. You know, you need to come to work with your heart in it to go to work, and, you know, make the best for you. You know, you grow up the ladder.
Yeah. And, you know, people, you don't do this because you have to. You do it because you love it. You
That's
do it
right.
because it's in your blood, and you wake up every morning excited about going and getting after it.
Yep. You know, just like give a man an honest day's work for honest day's pay.
Yeah.
But I'm concerned somewhat about it in the future, is that I just hope that the younger generation can come in and adapt, you know, I see a lot like me and Eddie Rollins talking about, you know, young kids are good on computers, and the simulators is the way to go to teach them, and on-site training also. And I think what y'all do is a great idea.
Well, I appreciate that.
It's just a great idea, and it's I commend y'all for that, and I want to check it out sometime a little bit more.
Well, I can tell you, I can put you at ease a little bit about being concerned, because this next generation, not only are they capable of doing it, in some ways they're more capable of doing it, and so we're excited about what we're seeing. This industry has changed a lot, and the emphasis on people and investing in people, that's something that I wish we'd been doing 20 years ago.
Right.
But it's working, and I'm excited. I'm excited about the people that are getting into this industry and teaching new ideas, new ways of looking at things, the technology.
Right.
As difficult as that is for some of us to get on board with, it's not for this next generation. They love it.
You know, the GPS stuff and all the stuff that I've learned that over the past, 8 or 10 years. It's excellent. It saves a lot of footsteps on the ground. And it's the technology is going to keep changing. But you know what gets me lots of times is it changes, it costs. Every time a software grade upgrades on a GPS, I need to check for this, like you said. I said, again, it's a cost to it too. It's a cost of doing business.
Yeah.
So,
all right, last question. What are you most proud of?
There's a lot of stuff I'm proud of. I mean, I'm proud to have good health for my age. I've been lucky. Both my parents have gone. They passed on, and I got my son and his wife, and got good family support and all that. And I'm happy with the business. I've been successful. But success comes with a price. stay up late, get up early, a lot of Saturday work. But at the end of the day, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with myself, and I think that's what all that matters.
I think that does. And, Alan, I will tell you this, that you are highly regarded in this industry. People think the world of you. You've got a great reputation of getting it done, being honest, treating people fair and with respect. At the end of my career, I can only hope that people think the same about me. So you should be very proud. I know you're excited to see your son and some of your other leaders at the company starting to take a little bit more leadership and ownership in the business. And so, and I'm excited for you. You're going to tell us when are you going to retire?
I've been asked that a while.
But this is the Give Us the Dirt podcast. This is when you have to, this is the time to do it.
I don't know if I could retire. I don't know if I could retire. Because I got too much energy. I go to the gym at night when I get home.
You work out at night?
Yeah. Yeah. I told my son, he said, Dad, you're probably the only person I know that can do his age and push-ups.
Wow.
And he says, I've won some bets on that too. So
that's impressive.
But I don't know. I just enjoy working and being around people. I like being around people, and talking to them and listening to their story. I told my son, I said, listen, in life you need to listen. Don't always talk. Listen to just surrounding conversations about stuff. You can learn a lot more.
Well, man, I'm with you then. Forget retirement. If you're having fun, you're still enjoying this, and you're being successful, why not do it?
I told me and Tim Davis go back a long way.
Well, Tim thinks the world of you, and Tim is a lifelong dirt guy too. He loves equipment.
Yep.
You and Tim remind me a lot of each other as far as your knowledge of heavy equipment, your knowledge of the industry and the work. But Tim has a lot of respect for you.
Same feeling here, because we just knowed him back long years ago when running machines like I did, and just so much respect for him because he's so knowledgeable. I reckon just like myself, as just like if y'all hired me, I could estimate if need to, or I can run a crew. I can project management. I can run the machine. I can run the water truck. I can move the equipment. I can work on it if I need to. That's kind of the same mold that me and Tim was kind of cut out of. But yeah, Tim Davis is a great individual.
He is. Yep. He is. Well, Alan, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story with us. Your high school teachers would be very proud. Your public speaking classes paid off, and your soil evaluation classes.
I think both of them helped me in life.
He did.
But one more quick thing I was going to tell you about Hoopall. Back in the early 90s, I done some hauling for Mr. Hoopall and Larry. Had a job in Fort Mill. If I, maybe on you.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What was that job? Do you remember?
It was addition on the First Baptist Church in Fort Mill, and they called me the first time I met them. Said, "Can you do some hauling for us?" And I had a couple of dump trucks. That's all I had, and I went out there and hauled the land clearing debris off for them.
And you've been working with Hoopie ever since?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Isn't that funny how that one yes and answering that call and trying to solve that problem led to a lifetime partnership?
Yeah, just trusting somebody. And I remember Mr. Hoopall telling me, he said, "Son." I was young then. He said, "Son, I always remember to grease your equipment. That's the life of it." I said, "Yes, sir." And I knew it then, but it kind of, it stilled in my brain then that, to take care of your equipment because that's your assets.
Yeah. So that's another great lesson, Alan. You never know what that opportunity is going to turn into. Had you not done it, had you not worked with it, that would have been a different story. But to answer that call, solve that problem, it could lead into something big.
It's just like I told my son. I said, AJ, always remember that, especially in business, if somebody calls you, they're not going to be a text or a computer or email something. It may be old school. It may be a guy from Florida comes up here that want to develop 1,000 acres of land that wants to talk to you.
Yeah.
Try to return that phone call.
Never know what that's going to turn into.
You never know. That's what I instilled. Some simple business skills still work.
Alan, you've done a great job, and congratulations on your business and your team and just life and enjoying it. It sounds like you're in a great place. You're happy, and we appreciate all that you do for us. It's been a great partnership.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being on the podcast.
Well, thanks for letting me come on.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Give Us the Dirt. visit our website at giveusthedirtpodcast.com and subscribe to this podcast on Apple and Google so you never miss an episode.